Good morning. It's Charlene Sanjenko from PowHERhouse. Oh, my speakers and my guests are muted right now, which might be dangerous. Good morning. Welcome to Gather for Her. And I'm going to jump into this is our third conversation of the month. And I'm super excited to do some intros and a welcome. And then I'm going to turn it over to our host this morning. Just before I begin, just going to ask you to take a deep breath and land here, as I will as well. I just want to let you know that it's about a 30-minute conversation once we get going. And the whole point of Gather for Her is an opportunity to speak with a leader who is in a very specific area that benefits us all. So how is this leader leading, coping, thriving right now? And what words of wisdom does she have for us individually and collectively? That's what we're listening for. And today, Dr. Maryam Zeineddin is our guest. And I'm really excited to speak with Dr. Maryam. She is, I'll just quickly read a bit of her bio. She is the founder of and chair of a great nonprofit organization called Zeely Care. And it's all about preventative health. And I met Dr. Maryam a few years ago at a women's health conference where we were given insights and tools and just started to build a sense of community around the topic of women taking ownership of their own health. So as you can imagine, this is a lady and a leader that I've been following quite closely since that time. She's also a practicing doctor in West Vancouver at the Ambleside Medical Center, where she's the co-owner. And again, just all about family medicine, preventative health, and lifestyle counseling, which I think is just, it can't be any more perfect conversation for today. So Dr. Maryam, I just wanted to say good morning, and then we'll welcome the co-hosts, and I will exit left. I'm just gonna unmute you, and I'll just pray that our microphones work okay. Good morning, Dr. Maryam. Thank you for joining us. Maryam, do you have a headset that you could try? I'm gonna just quickly introduce my co-hosts as well. Christina Benty is our host and our facilitator, and I'm just so grateful for you here this morning. I'll be turning it over in a minute, and I just wanted to say welcome and good morning to our story tracker, Tina Overbury. Thank you for your patience as we get going.
Thank you for the intro, and thank you for having me. I feel honored to be here.
Oh, that's so great. So just before we kick off the conversation, I would like to start. I'm also welcoming an Indigenous sister this morning, Sharon Marshall, who is drawing our conversation, graphically facilitating from Vancouver Island. And I'd like to start with a land acknowledgement this morning. I am grateful to have a home on the beautiful Sunshine Coast and the land of the Squamish First Nations. And I just ask you to take a minute and reflect with gratitude about the land on which you reside and where that came from. And it's definitely just a beautiful day, and we are so privileged to enjoy our homes. So I just wanted to start with that. I'm going to exit stage left, and I would like to introduce Christina Benty, and thank you for taking over this morning and for the conversation. I'll be back later.
Awesome. Good morning, everyone, and welcome. I hope you got your cup of tea or coffee. I actually have hot water and lemon and sea salt. That's what I'm having this morning. instead of coffee. So good morning, everyone, and welcome. I'm very excited to be here. My area of expertise is in human systems, in organizations and systems, and then the humans within those organizations. So yesterday, Maryam and I had the opportunity to connect by phone, and we chatted for an hour, and I'm in love. So so I'm absolutely thrilled to have her here this morning. And you know, we've had several of these conversations now, and our area of focus today is around health and healthcare. And we chatted about, you know, the importance of women taking ownership of their health. And we're going to talk less about physical health. I mean, there's lots of information about physical health and healthcare. We're actually going to talk today more about soul health and mental health and emotional health. And like I said, we had a fantastic conversation, and I am thrilled to have you here today, Maryam. And so your work is incredibly relevant right now. And so what I'd like to start with is a conversation about, tell me about your work, and tell me about how you live your work and why it matters to you personally in your own heart, and then why it matters to the world.
Thank you, Christina. That's a lot of questions all together. But I can start. So I'm a woman, as you can see. I'm a mother, I'm a sister, I'm a daughter, and I'm a physician. And it's interesting how I say physician last. I used to take my role quite at the top of my list, especially that role. Sorry, I'm getting an echo, so I can't think at the same time. I'm going to see if I can take this off. Can you guys hear me? Now you hear an echo. Yeah, I can hear myself almost 3 seconds later. So I'm trying to see how to do this. I'm going to see if I can refresh my...
Yeah. And you might have, maybe your phone is close by and also running, and so that you might be getting that. You know, Christina, what I loved the list, the woman and the mother, sister, daughter, physician, and the pauses in between the words of that. And I'm curious what you heard in your conversation yesterday, just around those 5 words, woman. And yeah, go ahead. Oh, she's back. Here we go.
So we talked about the fact that we talked about the difference between role and your essence, right? All the roles that you hold, and then your essence. And I think that actually is a good lead back into the difference between, you know, your role and your essence, and how that relates to soul care and soul health. So so we were having a brief conversation while you were refreshing, and now you're back in the room. And like I said, I'll turn it back over to you. No, we can't hear you.
Did anybody watch? Oh, there we go.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Oh, sunshine.
No. I'm not sure how to. Oh, there you go.
Yes.
Yay! I don't know if anybody watched the Stephen Colbert. I think it was Stephen Colbert live, and it was with the guy from Harry Potter. I can't think of his name,
Yes.
but they had technical difficulties. Wasn't that hysterical? It was like, right, like this is life. Like,
No, I just have to be okay hearing myself.
Gotcha.
No, what I was saying was that usually this is kind of the life we live as women. We're care providers, we're caregivers actually. And it goes way, 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 way back. And this is sort of what we've been given generationally and multi-generationally. So there was never this notion that you have to care for yourself before you care for others, especially not for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I recognize that when I did work with Gabor Mate, who is a mentor of mine. I've been practicing for 15 years now. And our conventional healthcare system is very Band-Aidy. I mean, you come with your physical ailments and we rule out all the diseases or illnesses. And then we go, okay, it's nothing physical. Now we go to your mental health. And I didn't really recognize how much your physical health, your mental health, and your soul health, your emotional health are all so interconnected. And I had to learn the hard way myself. I suffered from anxiety and depression after I had my first child. And I had very little help. Nobody had a conversation with me saying, you need to take care of yourself before you can take care of others. So after a while, after becoming hopefully older and a little bit wiser, we started this not-for-profit for women. And it was for all my patients, for all the women I know, especially for me. So we came up with a formula. And then, to really go deeper into the soul health, I didn't realize how many of my emotions have memories. And I don't know if you want to ask me anything about that.
Yes, actually, let's dig into that because we talked a lot about triggers yesterday, right?
Yeah.
And the memories of those emotions. And this comes back to how you're living your work, right? Like your educational background and your training is also you're living it out because you're healing your own soul in your work. Do you want to talk a little bit about that and about the memories that exist within those emotions?
Yes. So to recognize what your soul is to have awareness, just to be aware of your thoughts and not think that your mind is who you are. It was a very sort of awe-striking moment for me.
Nice.
And I don't know about your minds, but my mind keeps talking to me all the time. And it keeps saying things. I mean, especially now with the COVID times, there is so much fear and there's so much uncertainty. And we're in this coping mechanism all the time. So our sympathetic nervous system is always firing.
Yeah.
And the sympathetic nervous system is great for acute stress. If you want to cross the street, it's good to have fear so that you watch for the cars and you cross the street. But if that gets turned on chronically, it will affect you physically and mentally.
Right. Yep.
And there's now ample evidence that if you have chronic stress and the sympathetic nervous system always turned on, you're going to have higher risk of cardiovascular disease, cancer, dementia, diabetes, you name it. And these are all inflammatory illnesses. And one of the big things Gabor Mate was talking to me about is he said, Maryam, have you noticed 80% of the entire world that has autoimmune disorders are women?
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
And
so
that
living
was
in fight and flight, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And we don't know why, but our theory is because we carry all these roles, and we're very good at carrying the roles, but the role of just being us and attending to that soul of ours really doesn't take precedence. And when we think of preventative health, everybody automatically jumps on exercise and diet.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, exercise has been scientifically proven to improve your mental and physical health. There's no denying that.
Yeah.
In fact, there was a study, and they gave one cohort 16 weeks of 30 minutes exercise versus giving the medication Zoloft to a cohort that had depression. And actually the exercise group improved by 90% versus 50% for the just medication. And then they did it together, and it was the combination was only 60%.
Mm-hmm.
So that's been proven.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the diet portion, yes, it's been proven. You can have a plant-based diet, but you can't blueberry yourself into your soul. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
I just have to pause you
That's
for a
really
sec, because I just love that. You can't blueberry yourself into your soul.
You just can't.
I love it.
Well, and it's so we thought about all that, and I thought, okay, well, we have exercise, we have diet, we need to find ways to calm our mind, and that's in a form of formal or informal meditation, which every human being has to see it like it's a required mental exercise. Otherwise, you're going to say, oh, I'm not good at it. My mind is always rushing. I'm not into meditation. It just doesn't work for me because I can't calm my mind.
Right. Yeah.
And, I think you have to have zero judgment, and you have to just look at your thoughts and just don't chase them. Don't have a story attached to them. And that's what we talked about these emotions.
That's a big thing, hey, is having a story attached to the thought. And if you don't explore that story and actually ask, okay, where does this story come from? Does this come from my childhood? Who implanted this story that I made up about my thoughts, right?
Yeah. So we came up with this formula. It's called the CARE formula.
Mm-hmm.
So the C is calming your mind, A is activating your body, R is reinforcing your body with diet and sleep and all the stuff that you reinforce your body with. And then the most important part of care is the E, the engaging your soul.
Yay. Yeah.
And it's very difficult, actually, because you have to have a fairly calm mind to be able to tap into that awareness of yours.
Yeah. And do you think that we're actually given the opportunity right now to do that? Because we have had so many distractions in our lives, and we keep ourselves so ridiculously busy, and that this is actually that reset opportunity that we're all talking about, right? Is to actually take a look inside and go, okay. Because I actually believe, and maybe you can comment on this, I believe that our external world is a reflection of our internal world, right? And we're living lives that are unsustainable. And so now we're actually, our external world is reflecting that. What are your thoughts around that?
I think it's a great opportunity. Although I have to say, when there's less distraction and you have pain, your pain will amplify.
Yes.
And you have to be prepared for that during this time.
Yes.
So let's take an example.
Okay.
What are the two biggest emotions that all of us collectively are having during these uncertain times? Tell me.
I'm going to say fear. Fear and anxiety around uncertainty.
Yeah. So this is actually a good exercise, and everybody can do it. And the people that are listening, I'm so sorry. I'm talking really strange because I can hear myself about 3 seconds afterward.
Fair enough.
So why doesn't everybody just check in with yourself? Check your sits bones, that you're sitting on your chair. Plant your feet on the ground so that you have anchored your feet like they're these beautiful branches holding you, even though you're sitting. And take a couple of deep breaths. And you can close your eyes if you want. Your internal world is sometimes nice to have the eyes closed. Now, I want you to I want you to just pay attention to your body. And if you're feeling like, if I were to do a scan, where would it light up the most? Now, I'll tell you where it lights up the most for me. My fear is in my chest. It always sits in my chest. And I can let it expand and just watch. I'm not afraid of my pain. Now, I want you to talk to that part of you that's bringing that fear. It's usually a younger version of you. And she's just trying to protect you. She wants your attention. So visualize her as a young part of you and visualize your adult self in a space with her where she feels safe. I'm visualizing my younger self in a big field with a big tree. And my mom is there as well, watching both of us. And I'm going to ask her, what do you need from me? How can I be there for you? And just let her answer you. And the answers could be many different things. My younger self usually answers, I want freedom. And I give her freedom. I honor that for her throughout the day. I don't give her freedom when I have physical pain only, or when I have only emotional pain, but I listen to her. And then now just pay attention to that part of you that was giving you some attention and see if it's decreased or stayed the same or increased its feeling or its sensation. And then you can open your eyes and just come to. Now, this is a snippet of a visualization that you can do with yourself on a daily basis. And you'd be surprised what that younger version of you, or that part of you that's bringing these coping mechanisms, what it's saying to you.
Yeah. Yeah. We have so much innate wisdom within ourselves that can actually tell us that like, it's integration of all those bits and pieces of ourselves, right? That are compressed, whether it's from being an infant or a child or a teenager or a young person, even our future selves, right? The integration of that wisdom, that innate wisdom within ourselves. Okay.
I love that. I'm just going to interrupt for a brief moment and turn it over to Tina in a second. Dr. Maryam, Wendy's just let me know that if you have any other windows open or any other browsers open, which I know if you're anything like me, you probably have about 50. And that could be the root of the problem. And if not, I apologize again. Thank you. You're such a champ. It's actually coming across extremely well. So anyway, I'm out here and I'm loving this conversation. Oh,
thank you.
Thank you, Maryam. Thank you for that. And more than anything, thank you for modeling what our current life experience is right now. Because what I see happening is, actually Shar mentioned it in the chat, is your experience of the echo is actually the very thing that you're walking us through right now. So the constant, whatever it is, the chatter or even just how that might be impacting you as you're listening to yourself and trying to do in the present while you're hearing memories that are 3 seconds old. So, as Shar also said, there's no accidents, right? So
no.
Thank you for doing that for us. And it was interesting, in these conversations, usually they're like spark plugs and there's like a zillion ideas all happening at the same time. And then I have to distill. And this conversation was completely different. My mind wanted to go out to all the spark plugs and go, wait a minute, that's not what is happening here. That's not what this is about. This is actually about simplicity. It's actually about the one thing of connection to soul. And that's it. And I think the great invitation is enough. The piece of where you mentioned in these moments of stillness or pause, if there is pain, it may amplify. And that is the only thing that, while there are tools and things that we got out of this, that is the only thing that is of the deepest service right now, especially in connection to what your work in the world is. And so it's like, I was sitting with how do we deal with that pain? And then you gave it to us. So that's what I'm hearing in this conversation. And yes, there are invitations into soul and the acknowledgement of that. But really, what's really the pulse that wants to be heard is, how do we support ourselves when in this pause we are in pain?
Thank you.
Yeah. And the wisdom of looking at our temptation to resist pain and having the courage to actually take a look at that which exists within us, and to bring that compassion and kindness and soul care into that pain, and ask it for what is the wisdom that's being offered to me right now. And I think what's so interesting about this conversation and so interesting about these times that we're living in is that we've always lived in an illusion of certainty And now we're aware that actually nothing is certain. So what do I have control over? I have control over my connection to self and to soul, to my essence. And it's such an invitation, right? To look at what does my soul need? Just like the meditation, what does that little girl need? What does my soul need right now? And I offer you this.
Well, you mentioned the word compassion, and I hear myself so well now.
Yay!
I was like, hey! You'll notice me speaking faster now, which maybe is not that great. But you mentioned the word compassion, and compassion, really, if you look at the meaning of the word compassion, compati means to suffer with. So we are so good at having compassion for others. We sit and we hold space for suffering for others. But I think self-compassion is what's needed more than having compassion for others. Because if you can't have self-compassion, you cannot have compassion for others. And so therefore you become agitated, you become judgmental, you start wanting to have control over your environment and over your loved ones. And I've heard the rhetoric around, when I speak to my patients, they keep saying, and did you see these young kids, they have no understanding that they need to be distanced and they are in the parks. And I was thinking to myself, well, it's just, everybody's trying to cope the best way they can. And if we're going to have compassion for others, if we want to care for others, we really have to sit and suffer with ourselves and know that it's not going to actually hurt us more. Pain doesn't do anything. It's just a sign. It's your signal to attend to yourself. It's a signal that you have to listen to, especially when it comes to physical pain. I always tell my patients, I had this one guy come to me and he has tremor, essential tremor, and he's quite young. And he said, well, I don't understand. How could this happen to me? I go up on the stage and I talk and I have this tremor. And I said to him, well, you're very lucky. Your sign is just a tremor that you need to attend more to yourself. Other people have many other very painful signs. So know that is a wonderful gift that's been given to you. And every time you have your tremor, it means that you didn't sleep long enough that night. You didn't care for yourself that week. And therefore your tremor is out. And he goes, yes, that's exactly what's happening to me. And he sees now his tremor as a beautiful sign for him to pay attention to himself. And the same way, my female patients, there's always some form of element of chronic pain. We always have some form of chronic pain. If it's hip pain, back pain, and when I've done this compassionate inquiry therapy approach with my patients, when they go to that part of themselves, when they go to that pain, a lot of them feel their pain in their shoulders and down their neck and their arms. And they describe it as someone sitting on me. Yeah. And it just means that part of you, the young part of you, just can't carry the load of that magnitude all the time. Yeah. So be kind to her. Yeah. Or be kind to that part of you. And you can even ask your pain, what do you need from me?
What are the messages that you have for me?
Yeah. What are the messages? What would you like me to do? Yeah. And if we didn't have pain, we actually wouldn't be where we are. Mm-hmm. Life is not about just joy and happiness. Life is about, finding that peace within you to be able to ride every wave.
Right. It's that integration of both the light and the shadow within ourselves, right?
Yeah.
And we experience so much shame around the shadow part. And how do we welcome the shadow and bring compassion to our whole selves, right?
Yeah, the shame is actually one of the word shame has the most negative, it's the most negative emotion you can possibly feel. And that's the emotion you'll automatically react to. If anybody instills shame in you, you will go into your coping mechanism or fight or flight or freeze mode right away. And it's very unconscious how quickly we go into a coping mechanism. And the shame usually comes from the time where we just weren't attended to the way our soul needed to be attended to at a very young age. And it's not to blame our parents or our grandparents or the our great grandparents. That's how they were raised. So they did their best. And it's not to be pointing fingers. And I'm sure as a parent, I haven't attended to all the needs of both my daughters. Yeah. But it's something to recognize that shame instills coping mechanisms. For me, shame instills guilt. I carry guilt. And women that are listening, a lot of us carry guilt. So how do I deal with guilt? I recognize that, hi, guilt. I know you're here to protect me. I know you're that part of me that's trying to protect me, but I'm safe. I'm okay. Yeah. I don't need guilt. And in fact, when guilt comes, I recognize I'm actually doing the right thing. It's a signal.
Yeah. It's so interesting because what we're talking about on a personal level, I also observe on an organizational level, right? Mm-hmm. That organizations that don't have psychological safety and that they're not allowed to sort of integrate their whole selves into as an organization, that they they have a weak and unstable foundation within them. And so it's so interesting because, again, I can see what the internal, right, the personal and the external, and the connection between the two. And so the humans within the system need to attend to themselves and attend to the human of the human system and the human organization.
Can I jump in with a not from a listening place, but actually from a context place of knowing that we speak to leaders in organizations and individuals, and that there are people leading on the front line right now, whether they are leaders or not, they are leading. Mm-hmm. I'd love to hear your thoughts about about self-compassion and care as a human in a system, serving a system right now, and what you might offer. I mean, the practice you gave us is one for sure already, like throughout the day, take a moment, go to the bathroom, do that. But what else might you unpack before they go to bed, or,
Yeah, the leaders are generally warriors. We have this sort of warrior mentality, and we will be standing and protecting, and leaders tend to do that a lot for their organizations, for who they're leading, but they may be bleeding at the same time. And I've seen leaders in action while they're bleeding, they're also leading. And it creates this culture that if you want to be a leader, you have to bleed and you have to suffer. And I think we need to have a cultural shift around that. I think as leaders, we need to exemplify when we recognize that we're bleeding, we need to step back and say, you know what, I'm bleeding a little bit. I need to attend to my wound. And we need to be able to delegate. We need to be able to trust. We need to be able to not necessarily always be on the front lines. We need to have the ability to listen. Mm-hmm. And on a daily basis, if I were to give an advice to any leader, is really bring your mind back to the present moment. Every night before you go to bed, you know, just review your day, not as in a judgment mode. Was this good? Was this bad? Did I do this right? Did I do this right? Have gratitude for what you've done, you know, recognize that what you did your best, and give yourself even that 5 minutes a day where you're just giving some attention to yourself, you know, be it whatever engages your soul. I mean, have a cup of coffee, call a friend, read your book, look at your beautiful view, take a breath. I don't care what you do, but you need to attend to that.
And that's modeling. That is modeling for others.
Yeah.
The path, right?
Yeah.
The path to whole leadership within organizations, whole leadership within your wherever you lead, internally, moving outward. So that's beautiful. Thank you. And I think Char's here to bring us into. We could talk all day.
I'm well aware of that. I just wanted to wrap up and introduce Sharon to just say a few words, just from what she heard from her perspective. But Maryam, I'm curious as a takeaway, and I'll give the first one if I'm allowed. But as a takeaway to leaders, if there was a prescription that you could write out for a leader, if there was a prescription of your top 2 or 3 things that come to mind, and the one that I heard was, dear leaders, number 1, please give yourself 5 minutes every day to come into the present moment. Just that break of 5 minutes. What would be your other 1 or 2 prescriptions that people could walk away with today, just remembering?
Yeah. I think leaders are quite judgmental towards themselves. They have lots of self-judgment. So I say at the end of your day, if all those self-judgment thoughts come in your head, recognize that that's not you. That's usually the younger version of you trying to say, you could have done better. You should have done this. You should have done that. And that's not your essence saying that. That's just this part of you that thinks that it needs to protect you. But you say, you know what? I did my best. I am going to attend to my soul. I am not going to judge myself. I will honor that part of me that needs rest so that I can be tip top in the morning for my team.
I love that. I love that. Sharon, I'd like to turn it over to you for a few minutes before we wrap today. Tell us what you heard.
Well, what I really resonated with was the mention of the feet as the beautiful branches holding you, and I did, because as an Indigenous woman, Indigenous person, that is how, and that's how everybody should. But that for myself, that's how I ground myself, and so I'm trying to draw that now. You probably can't see it because it's really light, but we're the tree, right? And so I gather my wisdom from grounding, and then centering myself, and doing what you talked about this whole session. The other thing that really resonated with me was the shame, and how we are as women, we're caregivers, and it's multi-generational, and so those kinds of feelings and beliefs are multi-generational. They come from our past, and and really the only way to release that is to move through it, and forgiveness is a big part of that. And so you have to acknowledge it, and then forgive, and then of course the shadow and the light. And so very, very wonderful conversation. I love the acronym CARE, and I just can't wait to draw this all out. Thank
I
you.
can't wait.
Thank you, Sharon. That's so good. I love your reminders and your perspective. I just want to take a moment. We're kind of at time right now, but I want to take a moment. Thank you so much, Dr. Maryam. It's so great to reconnect with you and to have this conversation. And I can't wait to see what blossoms next. I can only imagine. Christina, thank you as always for guiding our conversation today and holding space. And to Tina for listening. We're excited to track the story, to write the story, to share the story that started today. And it's just such a reminder that we gather for her. And what I heard as a takeaway for today was if we could just remember to be kind to her and be kind for her. And I just want to close by saying that in gratitude for her, we've created just a little, we call it a power pack. We've created a little pack, a digital pack for healthcare workers, essential service workers. And we want to be able to, we will share it along with the link in the article because I just think it's fitting to share it with this conversation. And it's just our richest gratitude to the women on the front lines, the leaders that don't even recognize that they are leaders, and they're just acting so bravely and courageously through these days. So thank you, Dr. Maryam, for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank
It
you
was
for everyone. I
great
really enjoyed the
conversation.
conversation. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Take good care.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye.